And me, along with another gentleman, we started that journey with a team of two, of course. And now I think there are 200 plus consultants there in India in that team. So it's a huge team now. Did that for around 4 years, worked with a lot of large customers in India, and then was given an opportunity to move to Singapore. Worked with a lot of customers in the APJ region, Australia, Singapore, Thailand, Korea, and did that for a couple of years. And then I was called over to the headquarters in Palo Alto around 4 years ago. And I was a part of the VMware CTO ambassador group, which I would say was a stepping stone for me, because that helped me gain visibility into the headquarters. As a part of that role, my job was to take feedback from customers, whatever I learned from customers, and go back and give them to product managers, and share requirements with them, tell how customers are actually using the product day to day, so that the product can be shaped based on the user requirements and the pain which operations goes through on a day-to-day basis. Would that journey help? Because then the product management team realized that maybe this guy can help us more if he's on our side. He can stop asking questions, stop complaining, and probably help fix some of those problems. So that's when I joined the team. And for the last 4 years, been working since, I would say, VROps 6.7 release is when I joined. And since then we're a team of product managers now, and we've been working on delivering the software every 6 months, and now every 3 months in the cloud. It's a quick 11, 12 years of mine.
Thank you, Sunny. So talk to us a little bit about, many of the customers that we have been using vRealize operations, and we're very thankful for that for many years now. Some go back as early as 6.0, and maybe even earlier at this point. So talk to us about how we've moved from the 6.x era through to where we are today. And then if you could talk about the ways that we've helped our customers, our partners, I should say, right? Because we work together closely with them. Tell us how we've improved the interface and some of the things that we've done to make life easier and more intuitive.
Sure, that's a loaded question, Steve, but I'll try to answer. So, in fact, I associate with the product when it was first acquired. So there was a company called Integrin Alive, and Alive was the name of the product. That's the acquisition which VMware did back then, 2008, 2010, or 2010 approximately, and that's when the product came in, and it was called VC Ops back then, vCenter Operations Manager, because it was very focused on vCenter, and with the 5.x versions, there were two different appliances, two different user experiences. It was something. And then somebody decided to go ahead and move into vRealize 6.0. And that was an architect, of course, or team of architects. Then we moved to 6.0 as a single appliance and common platform. Now, that was a surgery, I would say. It was actually a new product, if you look at it, right? Building a net new architecture. And back then, we took certain decisions which were painful for us. So some of the decisions around what kind of databases we choose. And back then, I think EMC acquired VMware somewhere around that time. So from the EMC architecture team, we got something called an XDB. That's a database, a core database, which was used in vRops back then. And the application rolled out. Everybody liked the new interfaces. 6.0 was great. New dashboards and everything was going on fine. But as enterprises and our customers starting to scale out, we quickly ran into problems. So we saw that the analytics engine is great and all the algorithms are awesome, but as soon as you scale to large numbers, you will see application having problems. And we've basically found out that it was the XDB which was causing all the issues. Now from that journey onwards, we went through I would say an up and down journey from 6.0 till 6.4, where we got rid of all that architectural debt from the product, made it stable, made it scalable. And then 6.7, where it was a pivoting moment where we said, hey guys, we cannot really have huge monolithic engines running in the product, because that, such as the capacity engine, because that not only make it slow, make scale an issue, but also it does not catch up to the speed of how customers are provisioning workloads. Customers do not provision workload once every month now. VMs come and go, and capacity management cannot be a job of a 24-hour job which will come and look at the historical data and tell you what your capacity is. It has to be online. It has to be every 5 minutes as we collect. So I remember we took a big decision of throwing away the entire capacity engine and building in a net new capacity engine. Internally, we call it Project Captain Crunch. And I don't know who came up with that name, but later on, I realized it's a cereal in America when I moved to America. The Captain Crunch came in and helped a lot because we immediately improved the scale by 40%, which means you, with the same size of the appliance, you can do 40% more objects and metrics, which was awesome. From that point onwards, we got a lot of customers complaining as well. A lot of them, I see the names over here in the attendees as well, who were like, you took away my this page and that page and this setting and that setting. Um, First of all, I apologize for that. It was not just me, it was a bunch of people, but we apologize together because you had to go through that pain, but that pain, um, and you being with us through that journey is now paying back, right? So now this is a time where that scale has improved to 4 times. You can actually do up to um, 200,000 objects in a single instance with continuous availability, which means you have 2 copies of data all the time. And if you go with a single copy, then you can actually double up to around 320,000 objects, which to me is meets the need of all the large or most of the large customers we have today. Um, and along the lines, we not only changed the capacity, we also went along and changed the user experience, because customers are using newer technologies and newer tools out there, and their expectation is to have simplified and easier workflows. And that has been the goal. And across the releases, every time we do something new or put 50% in resources into new things and innovation, we take 50% of those resources and put into the debt and improve on existing stuff as well. So that's kind of the balance which we're playing at this moment. And yeah, right now we just released 8.2, and I'm hoping some of you guys have already seen it or updated or upgraded to 8.2.
So you know, the next piece of that is you know, we've internally we've had the opportunity to get into the lab, at least Carl and I and some of the other Powerblock members. And you know, one of the things that I saw was this whole contextuality, if you will. Um, it seems like it's much more user friendly. I see that we added real-time widgets
Mm-hmm.
and such. So from your opinion, or from your position, you know, can you talk about some of the things that you think, and I'll use a real geeky term here, but really super cool, right? I have my opinions, but I'd love to hear what yours are and what that means, more importantly, to the folks that have joined us this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to be honest, I would lie if I say that we've done the job of making it super cool. There's still a long ways to go, and but I'm glad that you like it and you call it super cool. So it'll become super duper cool someday. But essentially, as I've used the product myself, I'm a user of VROps before I became a product manager, because I was deploying it at customer sites and doing a lot of professional services around it. And you know, whenever I used to finish the engagement, usually I had to sit with customers for a couple of days before they sign off. And the reason was they used to tell me, wait, let us have that application guy calling me who will say there is a problem. And whatever promises you have made to me that we are also solve the world hunger, prove it to me, show it to me how. And it so happens that a lot of times while doing engagement after deploying VROps, we start to troubleshoot and start using the product. So unlike other PSO engagements where you will go and do, let's say, VCF and move out and the customer will use it, but in kind of management products, you need to prove the metal by solving real world issues. So I used to do a lot of that. So I had a a way to work with the product and wire myself a way that I know how to get information out, which is the complex piece of VROps. It has or back then it was even more complex, I would say. So you have a lot of data, a lot of information and insights as well, but how do you get things out for what you need is the hard part. Um, and to be honest, that's what we are after. We are after removing what you do not have to see and only show you what you want, and then disclose further. I mean, the technical term for this in the user experience world is called progressive disclosure, right? Show me what I want, and then help me unpack slowly. Don't show everything together. And that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to put in progressive disclosure across the product, um, to make it simple for our customers to leverage and use the product. That's kind of one UX principle. The second part, which is interesting and which is now coming up a lot, and a lot of our existing customers are talking about it, is that we love the product, we are using it. My team loves it, and this is the VR ops team, right, or the monitoring team. But I have a hard time sharing the product with my colleagues. When I give it to my application team, or when I give it to my database team, or I give it to my level one ops team, they get confused. They're like, train me on this first, and then I can use it. So yeah, you can invest in that training, or from a product side, what we are thinking of is even simplifying a user experience in the product. And this is future, so I'm talking a little bit about future over here, is building this net new capability within the same platform, which can serve the novice user as well. So you will see, I can't share a lot of details there. We are working on that project, and next year we'll make a lot of progress in that area, so that you can now not only leverage VROps for yourself, but also share it amongst the enterprise for other teams to leverage it. And there are two benefits. One is, of course, you're getting higher return on investment. You do not have to buy a lot of point tools. And the second is the overall value or the business value of the product increases. And you, as an administrator, or you as a provider of that tool, also improve your overall value in the organization, because you are now providing a service which is important for the business. So yeah, those are the kind of areas where we are evolving, I would say.
Hey, Sunny, this is Carl. In terms of, the product suite, we've seen some add-ons specifically in the application space, right? Where
Mhm.
doing application monitoring, bringing more of that data in. Can you speak to, when that started and what do you think's on the horizon, 12 to 18 months as adding capabilities and other partners?
Sure, that's a great question. Again, another loaded one, so expect a 5-10 minutes answer. but but from an application point of view, I think for a long time, VR Ops was focused on infrastructure. It still is, right? It still is focused on SDDC and below. And TVS is an existing, or Blue Medora acquisition, or TVS acquisition is also a point there, but we'll touch upon that later. But what we've learned is that the administrators who are working on leveraging VROps, or using VROps to find and fix problems in the environment or optimize the environment, um, are struggling continuously for the fact that they and the application team, so the VI admin and the application team, do not speak the same language. The application, and I'm giving you an example. I was flown to India when I used to move to US. I was flown back to India for a large telecom customer whom I had done work with in the past, and that escalation happened at Pat level. So Pat basically formed a team, and we were shipped to India for that big telecom customer. And the issue was that their application, which was the mobile pay application, and at that time, if you remember, the currency notes were banned in India, and everything had to go digital, right? Everything had to go. So this telecom company had a digital mobile payment gateway application, so you can actually do transactions through that. So we were a team of 20, NSX, vSAN, vSphere, VROps, Log Insight, all experts sitting in a room. And we said, Mr. Customer, tell us what is your application. And this is the IT team who's using our tools. And they were like, wait, what do you mean? I said, what are the VMs which make up your application? which is having a problem. And the problem was that at certain points in time in a day, whether it's 9 a.m. in the morning, sometimes at 5 in the evening, the application itself will not do credit card transactions. So you cannot load money into the payment gateway app. If you don't load money, you cannot spend it, and that's their whole business model. So we went through that. We went to and asked the customer, give us the application. And he said, wait, what do you mean? This is my infrastructure. I'm monitoring everything. These are my 100,000 or whatever number of VMs. Said, what makes up that application? Because we are interested in looking at data for those VMs only, because we need to find out if it's an infrastructure problem or the app problem. Just to kind of shorten the story, it took us 4 days, multiple Excel sheets, multiple versions of those Excel sheets for them to produce and tell us what is the application. And then we could focus on the data to figure out that what information we need to look at, what metrics we need to look at, and finally found the problem was somewhere in the load balancer layer, because they were not having enough connections open at the load balancer layer, because of which the application was dropping. Now, the point here is that if the IT team had application awareness on day 0, off the bat, we would have solved that escalation or that problem within a few hours. It took us more than a week to solve that problem. And that's where I think we take that learning back, and we came back and we discussed with all the product management teams that, hey guys, we need to do something about this. So there are 2 parts to this now. One is I can install an agent inside a VM and get information about the software package. Now that is not an application. That's just software or service or process monitoring which you're doing. An application truly is a business application, which consists of multiple tiers, multiple VMs under those tiers, and now containers as well. And then you are tracking metrics across that and correlating that back to the infrastructure. That's where we realized that we can do a couple of things. One is we can do that application discovery ourselves, or manually describe those applications in vRops. The second option is to go ahead and do a service discovery, and based on those services, create the application. And the third one is leverage vRealize Network Insight. So in this release, actually 8.2, we've made the vRealize Network Insight integration native to the product. And if you discover an application with VRNI using network flows or ServiceNow database or tags or naming conventions, any discovered application in VRNI automatically flows into vRops. So you can leverage that business application model there and then leverage that for troubleshooting and monitoring as well. And then a lot of our customers told us, hey, you know what? All of this information is already available in other tools which we have, our apps teams are using, and they have curated this over so many years. How can we leverage that? That's when we had this idea of can we bring those applications, pre-curated applications, along with some KPIs and key, I would say, metrics, which are more app-centric. It could be synthetic data, it could be user data, and bring all of those from these other tools and bring into vRops as well, so that you have that full app to infrastructure line of sight. What we did is we did 4 integrations, which is available in vRops Cloud first, which is this release, but later on it will flow into on-prem releases as well. And those are with App Dynamics, Datadog, New Relic, and Dynatrace. So if you have pre-curated applications in any of these tools, you can just push them inside vRops now with a very simple integration, no config required, just username, password, and we'll suck everything in and correlate that automatically to the infrastructure. So essentially, at the end of the day, you will see, let's say, the business service, the tiers, the VMs it makes up of, and or the host it makes up of, then which VMs they're connected to, what infrastructure, data stores, or hosts they're connected to. So you see the full line of sight. And then not only that visibility, but also at the business service level, you can see metrics like AppDex or response time, and you can correlate that from the response time to, let's say, the data store metric automatically to figure out if this data store is a bottleneck because of which my response time is a problem. So now what we did at that company, I would say 4 years back, where we spent 5 or 6 days, we can take the same kind of a problem and solve that, I would say, within less than 20 minutes if
Wow.
we have everything integrated.
And what I'm seeing a trend is we're allowing customers to pick the best of breed, right? If I have an APM and that's giving me my application view, if I have VRNI, great, I can use that. Or if I'm deploying with VRA, I can see the application stack that I pulled into there. So, I see a lot of integration across the board. I was curious, anything on the vCenter side? So there's been a lot of work in vCenter. What do you see
Mhm.
moving forward in terms of leveraging those capabilities? And we had one question, asking about VM tools and Telegraph, right?
Oh,
So there's a lot of cool stuff we can do. So just curious where you see that headed down the road.
thank you. Actually, you pointed out to two things which I missed. So one is VRA and the second is VM tools. So let's talk about VM tools first and answer that one. So back with VROps 6.3, vCenter 6.5 update 1, I guess, we made this pact between the VMware tools team and VROps team that, hey, we go ahead and tell customers to install agents. We go ahead and tell them to, put in all the credentials and so on and so forth. But the reality is that we already have an agent from VMware sitting in every virtual machine out there.
Right.
Um, the reality is that we sneaked in. No, I'm just kidding. But VMware tools is required, right? And everybody understands that. Everybody has that in their mind frame. It's security cleared. Application owners understand it. Nobody complains, right? That you have some agent running in there. And there are various flavors to it, right? There's an open tools version. There is a VMware certified version, and so on and so forth. That's where we build a back channel to that VMware tools and found out that how can we leverage VMware tools to get some metrics inside VROps so that the application team and the infrastructure team, without having an agent, can talk the same language. A lot of times I've heard customers coming to us and saying, my application owner is seeing 30% memory usage while I can see 70% or 20% usage in VROps. What's going on? It is because VROps is looking at the hypervisor level by default, and application is looking at the guest operating system level. And memory management happens at every layer happens completely differently. The metrics are different. The way they're reported are different. That's when we build the VM tools integration to say that, hey, what if we automatically fetch this data through VM tools? And that's where we started. We started with memory and get all the guest operating system memory data from VM tools as well as from Linux and Windows, and automatically use that for all the use cases like right sizing and reporting and migration and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, with the last two releases, we've also introduced a couple of new metrics coming from that channel. One is the CPU queue depth, and the second is the disk queue depth, and also a CPU context switching. So now we are really getting into the guest operating system and trying to tell you that what is the queue which the application is experiencing from a guest operating system and a VM perspective. So imagine you go to a bank and you see a teller, and that teller is busy, right? You can only tell the teller is busy if you see the queue in front of the teller. That is there one person or 10 person or 10 people standing in the queue. So far with contention and ready and all those metrics, you can figure out that the teller is busy, but you don't know how busy it'll be and for how long. That's where you need the queue information. So now we have that queue information coming into VROps as well, both for disk as well as for CPU, which makes it even more powerful. And over a period of time, now we are trying to open new APIs so that we can also get some application data there. That's work in progress, I would say. But certainly that's the goal. Ultimately, we can leverage as much as we can leverage an agentless approach is what we want to do.
So Sunny, you spoke about the VM tools. You spoke about VRNI. You talked about the application and the importance of the application. Can you talk a little bit along those lines in terms of additional visibility and extensibility, and how vRealize Operations is providing that single pane of glass? So whether we're looking up and down the stack,
Hmm.
or we're looking across the platform, how and what we're doing to keep everything in how should I say this, in a very proactive and meaningful way
Sure.
to avoid issues or resolve issues when they come up.
Sure, absolutely. So my kid asks me once, right, "And what is your job, Dad?" And I was like, my I'm I'm a product manager, and he doesn't understand. He's a 6-year-old, right? So I explained him with by using his puzzle. I said, imagine if you want to see a picture, and if you want to see a full picture of how the astronaut is standing on the moon, and this is his puzzle, then there are 100 pieces in the puzzle. As you put these pieces together, and build the full picture, that is when you will have the full visibility of the astronaut and the moon and how it's standing there. I think VROps or our platform has a similar approach, right? It's a platform which can ingest data and have telemetry and inventory across the board, and then there are analytics built on top of it to solve different use cases or provide insights, right? Because you cannot look at trillions of metrics together. You have to draw insights out of that. Now, the the only approach to have better insights or that full picture is to make sure that you have integrations from the bottom, right? So as much as you feed in, the better the picture would be. And that's where when we first started, we focused on vCenter. To be honest, that was our bread and butter. But the analytics platform which we acquired was not just limited to vCenter. It had the capability, and it was actually working before the acquisition on completely different and agnostic use cases. Just to give an example, the first time I saw Alive, the product, when it was acquired, I was sitting in a training, and the person from Alive, who's the part of VROps now, or VMware now, he showed me that how a bank in US is using Alive to track the call center calls, and how the number of call and basically it's monitoring the EPBX system, which is doing call routing, and how the number of calls on the credit card lines have increased. And I can see a decrease in the number of credit card transactions because they're also monitoring the payment gateway system on the transactions. So that is how I saw VROps first, which clearly means that it's a platform with analytics, ingest what you can, and you'll get the outcomes. Now, keeping that in mind, we started with vCenter and SDDC focus, but with Blue Medora, our partner company back then, came in and said, "Hey, your SDK or your SDK has to offer so much that I can actually punch in data from hundreds of different sources into the product and make it completely extensible." And we liked the idea. Of course, we didn't have the workforce that time in the team to do it ourselves, so Blue Medora did it for us. And over the last few years, they became a credible company, did some great work with a lot of customers. I know some customers in this list as well who told me that never buy Blue Medora, don't touch them, keep them separate. So we didn't buy Blue Medora. We just bought TVS, which is the True Visibility Suite. And now the goal is that, but again, we have all the VMware integrations already in place. With the TVS integrations, which are 50 plus integrations across the board, we are now making the platform truly extensible by getting in data from any source, which is available in the data center world, right? And they also move up the stack sometimes into specialized applications such as the Epic healthcare system application, or the integration with ServiceNow, which is now talking about how can I get ServiceNow CI data into VROps as well, and then send alerts over to ServiceNow. So truly think of it as a single platform, extensible connections coming in from the bottom, and then analytics on top. And at the very top, you have insights which a user is getting. Those can be capacity, performance, or whatever you want to call it.
Thank you.
So Sonny, I had a quick question regarding TVS, right, which is Blue Medora. It seems like we came full circle. And actually, Brock Peterson, who's now at VMware, is on the call. So I was just curious, do you see, it seems like we wanted to get some cool intellectual property. Somebody was doing it, right? Whatever the reason was, we had them do it. Now they're back in the fold. So now that we have this group back, do you see us adding a lot more of our management packs to that portfolio? And if there's a few that you can sort of tease the team with, like, hey, this is coming down in the next 8 months or 2 months.
So to be honest, we just kind of finished the discussions around the acquisition and getting the team onboarded. We are very excited because the team is not only come up with a lot of integrations or software, but I think the main IP there is the people, right? And the people are absolutely amazing. You just spoke about Brock. He's himself is I would say um, uh, an expert, not only just on the management backside, he's a core VROps expert for us, right? And he gives feedback, which allows me to go back and prioritize features, which will be leveraged by every customer. So I think the team has come in, the software packages have come in. Right now, we just announced it as the vRealize TVS suite or vRealize True Visibility Suite, which still continues to be a separate offering, which customers can buy and extend VROps. But over a period of time, we will see convergence happening. At this moment, there are no details figured out yet. I don't even have a roadmap yet. It's just vRealize TVS and the vRealize suite sitting together. And yes, there will be convergence in terms of consumption surfaces, in terms of integrations, and things like, one thing I can tell you, right, is, for example, the vRealize Operations Cloud, we have now made it that simple to get management packs. You don't have to search for the versions and where to get them from. So some things, now you will see an embedded marketplace into vROps Cloud, where you can search for an extensibility solution, click on it and say get, and that's it. It's installed and you're ready to use it. So we've done it for a lot of our native management packs, and we'll extend that to all the Blue Medora or TVS management packs as well in the upcoming releases.
So in terms
So
of, one more question, Steve, there's a question from Max. So in terms of scale, right, we're adding a lot to the platform. Do you see down the road making it, scale out more, have a federated model, that sort of stuff? And I was curious
Yeah.
what the roadmap is
So
there.
there's some good news there. So the good news is that we are leveraging VROps as it was on-prem, the software and the architecture, and we've taken that architecture to cloud. So vROps Cloud is a similar or same architecture as vROps on-prem. It's just that and the principles of scale up and scale out are exactly the same. But now, since we run the software ourselves and we are managing it for different customers who are consuming vROps Cloud as a service, guess what? We've got additional responsibility as well as additional, I would say, requirement to go ahead and make sure that our platform is highly resilient and scalable. Because a vROps Cloud customer would just expect to add whatever they want to add and have that single pane of glass showing them what they need to. And that's what is happening with a couple of customers recently who've joined us. They've come up with a huge inventory day zero, right? Because they've just transitioned from on-prem to cloud. We are already ready for that. And we're scaling out like no problem or no issues. But the benefit of having that capability is that all of that will automatically fall in on-prem. What it means is in the last release, we were 160,000 objects in a continuous availability mode. Now we are 200,000 objects. And the next year or so, the target we are working towards is 300,000 objects. And ultimately, the vision is that we should not stop a customer scale out. Just keep scaling out as you want to add more objects and keep adding nodes. And in the cloud version, we have all the responsibility and control. So that's even better. I mean, if you that's the vision, have an unlimited scale just by just keeping or adding nodes. Because now the technologies which we have like Cassandra and Gemfire, as well as the file system database, the FSDB, all of them can scale as you keep adding node and scale out.
Sunny, thank you for that. That brings me to a question. Many of our customers, we've been talking about that, the transition from the traditional on-premise cloud management suite, or vRealize suite, and talking about our, via our new subscription modeling, moving to a SaaS, our SaaS platform. And some of the things that, we kind of been talking about on the Powerblock team with our individual customers is the notion that why spend time managing and managing the platform. Let us do that for you, and you manage your assets, your dashboards, your blueprints, now called templates,
Yep.
depending upon the thing. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what's pointing us in that direction, and to play off of your last question,
Question. Yep.
how is
Sure.
that helpful for our customers?
Absolutely. No, I can talk about that. So here is, I'll tell the reality, right? The reality is that AWS came in number of years ago, a few years ago, and then they were able to kind of take a lot of customers to cloud, right? All the new startups who are not willing to have an IT teams and stuff, let's go to cloud, have my services, and you're up and running. Um, and then basically VMware, of course, tried our cloud journey as well with vCloud Air, as you would remember. And we saw that we saw success there, but of course we were not a cloud company back then. We were more focused on virtualization, starting with SDDC and stuff like that.
We need a
Uh,
robot to take compute and just like add it automatically without, and Amazon's got that.
yeah, exactly. And we didn't have so many elves as well, to be honest. I've heard stories about elves running around in AWS data centers, but but anyways, I think the partnership with AWS, with VMware Cloud on AWS, was the best thing ever, which has happened to both AWS and VMware. And now that partnership is extending to Google and Azure, and everybody has joined the party, right? So that is one motivation for where we see a lot of customers who were on-prem and they want to stick with the VMware stack because they have their applications running. They love the technology. It's been reliable for them for years. They do not want to spend millions, if not billions of dollars to re-platform applications because it doesn't make business sense, right? From a business point of view, it makes sense to lift and shift and go to VMC, for example, or VMware Cloud on AWS. Even if you're not doing that and you're building on-prem data centers, a lot of our customers, as Steve mentioned, were asking us that I spend a lot of time managing the management platform while I would have been better off getting insights from the management platform and managing my environments, which are running my applications. You ask me to upgrade every 3 months or every 6 months, and they go through a long cycle of first doing test, then doing dev, then get a sign off from my internal teams, and then it'll go in production. You release cool features, but I have to wait for those cool features because my testing cycle is 6 months, and then comes December where nobody works, and I am working on the 25th of December when I should be enjoying with my family and upgrading your VROps application. Back then it used to take 16 hours as well. If I know, I've heard those horror stories as well. Now it's kind of good and fast, but still it takes time to manage. So that's where our motivation for cloud came in, right? We realized that customers are moving to cloud, whether it's VMware cloud or public cloud. Management cannot just live on-prem. That has to move to cloud as well. Not move, but coexist in cloud as well. But the biggest and I think the most important decision which we took there was to make sure that there is parity between on-prem and cloud in terms of user experiences, in terms of what you can do as much as possible. I would say 99% parity. There are 1% use cases which will come in cloud first and then flow in on-prem later because it's easier for us to roll out such use cases in cloud. An example of that is near real-time monitoring, right? So for a number of years, a lot of customers have been asking for higher data granularity. 5-minute average is not good enough when I'm troubleshooting a business or latency sensitive application. So I want something which is granular. So now we have released that capability for vCenter and VMC in VROps Cloud, and we'll do 20-second collection. But ultimately, we'll roll it on-prem. It'll take time because now we are giving a software and technology to you for you to manage. And if you do not manage the way it is supposed to be managed in terms of scale, platform, storage you should use, number of nodes you should have, then chances are it'll go down or things will screw up. So we want to make sure that what we give to you is solid, doesn't go down, and is perfect. But on the hindsight, I would say that, or on the other hand, I would say that if you are ready and whenever you're ready to move to cloud, we'll be available. And we're not forcing our customers to go there. The licensing model which we have released is a very flexible model, which says that now, Mr. Customer, I know your cloud journey is inevitable. It'll happen one day, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years. And you might not want to lock down to a licensing model, which is on-prem, strictly on-prem. So with the new licensing model, you get this flexibility of buying a license and then using it on-prem till the time you want. And the day your company or the IT or CIO mandates that, hey, we need to be in the cloud and move everything there, you can do it with the same set of licensing and entitlements which you have. So that's what the vRealize Cloud Universal is all about.
So let's switch gears for a second, if we could.
Sure.
Many of our customers are just starting on their journey, and many of them ask those of us on the Powerblock team, they ask us about, what are the things that they should be focused on first? And we typically talk about capacity planning, right? And we talk about troubleshooting.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one of the really cool, we've made both areas, we've made some pretty cool advancements on. So can you start off with troubleshooting?
Sure. So I'll tell you the reality, the internal numbers. The max, or actually 100% of our customers use VROps for troubleshooting. So if a customer has VROps, he's using it and it's for troubleshooting. That's the primary use case. And then if you look at the secondary use case, it'll be all about analytics and capacity management, long-term forecasting, and then around workload placement, and then around compliance. So that's kind of the split. When I look at the data and I want to invest in the product and do feature sets, then we look at how the customer is using it, what is the division, what is the demographic, and so on and so forth. Now, within the troubleshooting arena, we've been kind of looking at the space of observability a little bit to try and understand what's happening in that market. And essentially, what is the difference between monitoring and observability, right? So back in 8.0, we kind of sat down and we said, we need to revamp how troubleshooting needs to be done. We need to not just focus on dashboards, but also trying to look at this world of observability. What does that mean? Okay, said, see, there are three kind of situations in IT. There are known situations. What is known? I have a known problem and a known solution. I have an alert which says your VM is running slow because it has a snapshot. Okay, that's a known problem. I've created an alert for that. And the known solution is go delete the snapshot. There is an action, click on that button, boom, the problem is solved. The second situation is called known unknown. You have a high latency on the VM. You have an alert, you've got that, or on the application, you've got the alert, you're looking at it, but you don't know where the latency is coming from. You know it's from the data store, but why? Who else is hitting on that data store, and so on and so forth. So that's a known problem, unknown solution, and now you need to investigate that problem. And when you're investigating and doing troubleshooting, you start with what is the issue, who reported it, when did it happen? Then you start building some context around it as to has it happened before, what changed, and so on and so forth. And then you start going into that investigation mode of, okay, what tools I have, what resources I have, do I have metrics, do I have logs? And then you start creating a theory around that issue as to what could be the potential root cause, and you start finding evidences to prove that theory. And then finally, you might take a remediation step. And by the way, a lot of times customers might take remediation on the step one, go reboot, fix it, and then we will do the root cause analysis. So again, this is the whole process which IT follows. And our goal was that in the known unknown, and the third arena of unknown, I don't know what the problem is, somebody's complaining, and I don't know what the solution is, of course. We have to cater to all these three use cases, and at the same time, make sure that we can build a capability which can help customers go through the realms of from monitoring, from that alert, into root cause analysis by using observability. And the principle of observability is, I will tell you a scope, I will tell you a time. look at all the telemetry which you have and bring insights out so that I can take a data-driven decision based on those insights. That's where the troubleshooting workbench was born. And uh, that's where we moved from, hey, Mr. Customer, you have 100 objects, related objects. You need to go to each object, look at the metrics you like, and figure out what the problem is, versus take this entire scope, define the time period when the problem happened, and basically automate that entire troubleshooting process, which you go through manually through all those stages and put them inside the workbench. That's where if you have leveraged or used troubleshooting workbench, you will see that capability right front and center. And the goal there further is to introduce capabilities such as casebook inside that. What it means is that now you've troubleshooted a problem, you found some resolutions, and now you're going ahead and doing remediation. Now all of that effort which went into that process, can I can we save that whole effort? Can we save that as a PDF, notepad, scratchpad, a case in the system itself? And I'm talking a little bit about future over here. And then leverage that for future insights, leverage that as evidences within the product, leverage that as sharing it with teams
Mm.
when you want to provide a root cause analysis document. So we're getting there, and over the next, I would say, 10 to 18 months, you will see VROps not only as where you find things, but you fix things at the same time, you document them and collaborate with your team members on that particular issue which you found.
So
Sunny, this is, oh, I thought I had the last
just
question.
as a, hang on one second, just as a follow-on to that, Sunny, many of our conversations drill down well beyond the scope of the virtual stack infrastructure, as it were. And one of the things that I found most interesting was the capability that we have now with Troubleshooting Workbench and TVS as well.
Yep.
So I just wanted to call that out, and if you had anything that you wanted to add on to that,
Sure.
then I'll
Sure.
pass it to Carl.
Yep. So so the troubleshooting workbench was built on that principle of the platform, right? Which means that you ingest any data from any source, and whether it's TVS, whether it's coming from SDDC, whether it's coming from Kubernetes, whether it's coming from the App Dynamics, Datadog, and all those integrations. At the end of the day, the power of VROps and its analytics is to build that relationship end to end, right? That's what I think TVS harnessed really well, to build that end-to-end relationship. So now you can actually see a process in a container, or a container running on a node, on a, let's say a pod, and that's running on a node that's connected to a VM, and there could be a bunch of VMs making that application. There could be a database server, and then all of that is sitting on different ESXi hosts, sitting on different data stores. Then those data stores, let's say if it's vSAN, it's sitting on different disk groups, and that's sitting on capacity and cache disks, for example, in vSAN. Now that's one view. There could be another view of how everything is connected from an infrastructure perspective. You're sitting on a host, which is sitting on a cluster, which is sitting on a VxRail, VxRack environment, which is connected to rack and power supplies and equipment in the data center for power, for cooling. All of that is a big map of everything coming together, and that's possible today. Now you can take a big map or a portion of that map and say, this is the map or area of the map which I want to troubleshoot, and ingest that by a simple custom selection in the troubleshooting workbench, and say, this is the time I want to troubleshoot in. So just those two vectors coming from any of these extensible sources. And then what we'll do is we'll give you insights into what has changed in this environment. So that is all property or configuration change. What is anomalous? What metrics are behaving completely different to how they were supposed to behave in this time period? And the third thing is what is anomalous from a perspective of the last 7 days behavior as well. So there are three different insights which come in, and now you're only focused on those metrics and not the 100,000 other metrics which you were looking at before. So yeah, it's extensible, works across different integrations, whether TBS, VMware, embedded integrations, or whether public cloud. I didn't talk about that. So AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. All the native services are also a part of VROps now.
Sunny, just one last question, and you could keep it short. So we have Skyline, you
Hmm.
have knowledge of your infrastructure, we have KBs, we have SRs that are open. Is there a larger VMware initiative to create more of an AI source that VROps can tap into? Hey, I've seen these things.
Yep.
Give me a recommendation that isn't in the VROps portal.
Sure, that's a great question. So we call it vRealize AI or vRealize Artificial Intelligence. That was the released or that was announced at VMworld last year as Project Magna, if you might have heard about that. So Project Magna is kind of the upper stitcher sitting up there and getting insights from all the tool sets or capabilities which we have, whether it's metrics, logs, network flows from Network Insight, and even provisioning data from vRA, right? Take all of that data and also the SDDC or core VCF platform data from a perspective of NSX, vSAN, and vCenter. And our goal is that all these insights which we are gathering from all these places across different customers, that can be fed into vRealize AI, and that becomes the platform which can then go back and serve individual products to highlight those recommendations. For example, one of the things which vRealize AI does today is vSAN uh, control changes, which basically means that vSAN has certain settings at the deeper level in the hypervisor itself. And if you tune those settings based on the workloads which you're running on top of vSAN, then you can get better latencies and better performance from vSAN. Now, why a human cannot do it? Because you might be running 20 different applications with different kind of workloads and which is changing every second. And that is what vRealize AI does. It takes care of those changes, learns those patterns, and continuously tunes the environment to make sure that every consumer is getting what they need at that given point of time. And this is one example. We have grand plans with vRealize AI, and you will see them rolling over the next 3 to 4 years as we evolve that platform.
So we're 3 minutes to the top of the hour, and Sunny, I want to thank you very much for spending the hour with us. I truly appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime on the Powerblock. We'll call it the Power Hour, if you will.
Power hour.
Try and keep this up once per quarter. And to that end, thank you everyone for joining us today. We understand that you gave up an hour in the afternoon for us. Our regularly scheduled program will be at the 10 o'clock hour in November. So with that, I want to wish everyone a wonderful weekend, and to you as well, Sunny, and the Powerblock team. We thank you so much for joining us. And again, great weekend to all. We'll have this video posted to the Powerblock community team site over the weekend. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.